Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT Community League here on the RENNSPORT Twitch channel. Not from the Expo right now, but here from, well, the PCs all over the world. Because now it's time to go into the final race of Season 7. Today, at Daytona, we had some pretty interesting races early in the day. And we have one more to show you before we go into the final Expo Day tomorrow. And I'm very excited for this, and alongside me in the commentators booth as usual is Tim Ireland. Welcome, Tim.
Hello Lino, hello everyone on Twitch. How are you guys today? I hope you've enjoyed Saturday. If you've been to the Sim Expo or not, then I'm sure you've had a good day.
Indeed, because, I mean, it is very interesting, the situation we have here. A very long streaming day here on the channel, which we don't typically have. But, yeah, I think we have a very interesting race on our hands here. 20 cars out of track and a championship battle, which is led by Dominik Ladler to claim his 5th RCL title and take the crown back from Rowan den Hood. But also some people who try to make their way onto the podium, because in the podium fight it is pretty tight, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a really close championship, which I really enjoy. I'm sure you guys sitting at home watching really enjoy. So we've got a lot of action coming up today. We've got some, maybe not so much of an epic battle for the first place position, but a lot of the positions after that are really close together. So we should have some really nice fights between the guys who've turned up today.
Indeed, and don't be confused by the name Max Dänisch. This is not Maximilian Dehn. This is Tim Schroeder, who decided to use his name for his own amusement. But, yeah. Tim Schroeder in the Porsche here today. We have Dominik Ladler, of course, in the Porsche. Aliza in the MSI AMG. Rowan den Hood in the Winners Beta livery Porsche. So, yeah, interesting mix up front as usual. But right now in qualifying, which could be pretty important, seeing how the last few Daytona races went, right?
Yeah. We've had some pretty close races at Daytona and some walkaway victories, but obviously it becomes a bit more of a tactical race. But I think everyone's going to want to be at the front and out of the way of the danger zone of T1 as the race starts. So yeah, I think qualifying is going to be pretty important for these guys.
Yeah, I think the most interesting situation with that was, of course, the 3-wide between Dominik Ladler, Rowan den Hood, and was it Tim Schroeder actually? I think it was in Season 5 where that happened. 3 cars into basically a spot of 2. But we also got some new names here today, which seem to be quite interesting. One of them being Rasmo67 in the AMG, and he's currently 4th. Just a bit behind Mark Hewitt, but Dominik Ladler not on a good first lap. Same for Rowan den Hood. And it doesn't seem like this one will be a big improvement, because Sector 2 is not a personal best time for the AMD driver. Let's see what Dominik Ladler can do. Green sectors all around and goes 3rd quickest, but just for a moment, because Rowan den Hood has taken that spot. 2 purple sectors, just not in Sector 1. That's where Aliza has dominated so far. And would you look at that? What a surprise that is, isn't it? Enrico Bräuninger on pole position.
Yeah, he seems to have put together a fantastic lap there, doing a 45 dead. So he's got a little bit of an advantage over Aliza here. So we'll see how this carries on, really, I guess.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see Enrico Bräuninger back on the top. Now that he was gone, his name a bit too long for you to see the lap time, because he likes messing with our stream. But, yeah, I mean, for Enrico, he collected his first victory this season. He was at the expo yesterday, which happened to make me meet up with him, I guess. No, this sounds wrong. But, to put it in other words, I was able to meet Enrico, Michael G, who was also here today, and Tim Schroeder. Yeah, we have Michael G. And actually got a nice t-shirt from Enrico as well. Can't join GST, but still got their merchandise. So, if you're looking this back, Enrico and Michael, big thanks for that. Really appreciate it. Here we have some further moves up front. Max Danish, aka Tim Schroeder, on P4. Dominic Lalano just in front of Julian Chicot, who probably won't improve on this lap in the Audi. And Alizai also doesn't.
7 within a second. Well, nearly half a second, to be honest. The top 7. Then bit of a gap until the kind of the trailing mid-pack of drivers.
Yeah, the front very competitive. I think so far we have 8 cars that are within a good shot of winning this race. Maybe even 7.
Yeah, they're very close with lap times, but obviously with Daytona being a fairly draft-heavy circuit, there's nothing that's out of the realms of being able to get back with a little bit of drafting.
And let's not forget, for some of these drivers, especially Enrico Bräuninger, Alizai Ronenhood and Julian Chicot, the qualifying points are incredibly important because they are super close in the championship. It's 10 points separating these 4 drivers. And this is still for P3 to 5 in the championship. Dominic Lala out front, 128 points. So there really needs to be a miracle for him to not win the championship. But for all of the remaining drivers, it is far from possible, or far from impossible, to make those positions up. And Cesco Monuera and Tony Thomas currently 12th and 13th in qualifying, as now Tim Schroeder is getting pole position. They are also equal on points in P6 and 7 in the championship.
Yeah, so going to be some interesting fights going on in the mid-pack for those extra points there. Tony Thomas just rocketing up to 10th place there. He's just put in a 46.7. Tim Schroeder calling it a day with a 44.8.
That is a very, very good time though. Enrico Bräuninger will have one more shot to reclaim pole position. Last lap was not as good, but let's see what he can do. He will definitely try. Douglas Nasri moving up into 8th with a 46.3. It's really getting quite tight up there.
Yeah, the top 7 have spread out a little bit more. Since Tim Schroeder put in his quick lap, it's just spread the top 7 out to 0.8 seconds, but still within a second, and still very close together for 7 drivers. Douglas Nassi and Kozluk very close together as well. Only 0.05 of a second between them for piece.
Yeah, meanwhile, as some of you may notice, we have a bit of a different look to the stream because we got some new tools to work with, which are very nice and hopefully will trickle down to the community as well. Earlier or later, Ronenhood going purple in Sector 2. Let's see if he can improve. No, he can't, but Alizai goes 3rd and pushes Enrico down into 4th with 46 seconds on the clock. Enrico Bräuninger also Sector 2 in purple. Comes across the line. Does not improve as it seems, so he's still between Alizai and Dominic Ladler. Makiweth in 6th, Julian Chicot in 7th. This could be very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to make for a super important T1, and no one's going to be really too willing to give an inch, I think. Whereas Dominic Ledler's probably just hoping to get around pretty safely and not do too badly, so he might be maybe a bit more willing to back out of that corner than everyone else.
He has experience from that before. So, yeah, qualifying is pretty much over. Here we have a look at the current standings. That's, of course, 3 points now for Tim Schroeder, 2 for Ron and Hood, and 1 for Alizaya. Means Ron moves 1 point closer to Enrico, 2 points closer to Enrico Breuninger, and 1 point closer to Alizaya. But going into turn 1, what do you expect? People playing it safe or going for all-out victory? Seeing how this is the final race in early access.
I think it's going to be dependent on the person. Like I said, I think Dominic Ladler, he's got his lead to protect. He's probably a bit more likely to back out than everyone else in the lead group, which is are all really fighting for points right now.
The engines are revving to the red line. And we go racing here in Daytona. It's been a very good getaway on the inside line, I think. Tim Schroeder immediately pulling in front of Rowan and Hood. Alizaya pretty set in stone there in third. Julian Chico trying to go down the inside of Enrico Breuninger. Dominic Ladler already moved up into fourth position. Now on the inside of Alizaya, trying to use the traction of the Porsche out of turn 2 and moving past the AMG, but it's still side by side for Julian Chico and Enrico Breuninger going into the first horseshoe. Seems like Enrico Breuninger is on the better line, but Mark Heworth in behind, as well as Rasmus67, we've been talking about him in qualifying, seeming to be in a very good position here. Still side by side between Chicot and Breuninger. It's all bunching up a bit here in the second horseshoe. Dominic Ladler going wide onto the rumble strips. Let's go on board with Enrico Breuninger here. You see the Quanda Porsche out front. That is Tim Schroeder. Then it's Rondon Hood in slipstream. And Julian Chicot finally moving past Enrico Breuninger. It's 2.5 tenths of a difference between Tim Schroeder and Rondon Hood out front.
Two victims of the start procedure there, Michael G for driving for GST and Nolan Faucher, who both got drive-throughs unfortunately at the start of the race, so they'll have to serve them pretty quickly and get back into the action.
Mark Heworth into the wall, exiting the bus stop. So this didn't do too much damage. Definitely lost him a lot of momentum. Picoslo going through. There's Douglas Nasri now going through. And behind that's also Cesco Monuera. Trying to hang on to it. Alizaya and Julian Chicot fighting over fourth place with Dominic Ladler just ahead, who's also getting closer to Rondon Hood here. And Julian Chicot again side by side, but Alizaya is super loose there through the small S-bend. And Enrico Breuninger seems to have found his spot for now in 6th. The question is, will 6th be enough for him to secure P2 in the championship? He has 3 points over Alizaya. Currently, it would be enough, but Rondon Hood in 2nd could take the 2nd place. So he has to not stray away from this group too far. Tony Thomas has dropped behind Cesco Monuera as well. These two are equal on points as said earlier. Two cars are also in the pits.
I was just going to say 2 cars are in the pits.
I read your mind.
We've got Slav Plays Games, who seems to have gone in to do some repairs. His car's looking a bit beat up. And Nolan for sure. I don't know if he's done it on purpose or he's just misunderstood what a drive-through is, but he's gone into his pit box.
Whatever the case is, because Luke trying to defend from Douglas Nashi. Maki Earth was able to reclaim the places, but he's bleeding a lot of speed here on the front stretch, and you will see probably both cars move by. Potentially even a little 3-ride moment. No, Douglas Nashi is deciding to stay behind the two, which may be the better idea.
Dominic Ladler just got a big shuffle coming into the bus stop there. He went in kind of in equal second place and managed to come out of it in 5th.
Ronan hit a bit of a bottleneck here for the cars behind. Oh, and there's contact. Ronan Hood is off. I think it was in front of the Audi of Julian Chicot that this happened. And Ronan Hood not taking further part in this race. And now Dominic Lala and Ali Zaya side by side, exiting onto NASCAR 3 and 4. And right behind this group, it's Enrico Breuninger as well. So the fight for the podium positions in the championship still on for Enrico Breuninger. Yes, the Audi of Julian Chicot just 3 places in front of him, and his main rival just 1 place in front of him. And in between those two, that's the championship leader. As we now go potentially side by side. Dominic Lala going alongside Julian Chicot. Pushed by Alizai, who's pushed by Enrico Breuninger. And Julian Chicot's off onto the grass. And also spun around. That will drop him very far down the order. Seemed like a mistake under pressure again. What do you say?
I'm not really sure with that one, to be honest. It's all getting a bit feisty up front. I was just going back to watch the incident with Rowan de Herd again. Just a little bit of a boop going into the, not the international horseshoe, the other horseshoe. But it did spit him backwards into the barrier and probably caused a lot of damage. So a really unfortunate crash for him.
Tony Thomas and Cesco Mooney are still just behind each other, which is very interesting indeed. As said, these two are both on 59 points after 5 races, and they are just separated by a second here after 5 minutes. They've moved up the order though, they are now 8th and 9th instead of, I think, 12th and 13th. And Tim Schroeder out front with a nearly 5-second lead over Dominic Ladler.
Yeah, Tim Schroeder's got another dream start here today. He's really got a gap. Dominic Ladler and Alizar here having a good fight, but it's obviously not letting them keep up with Tim Schroeder as he disappears off into the distance.
But this fight is very crucial for Enrico Breuninger. He has 3 points over Alizar after qualifying. Currently the fastest lap, if I see that correctly, goes to Tim Schroeder in first. But having 2 cars so far up the order, or 1 car in between you and your rival, that is more than 3 points. So he either needs to get by Dominic Ladler, or he needs Dominic Ladler to overtake Alizar again.
Well, I don't think Dominic Ladler is particularly against the idea by the look of it. He's getting pretty racy. He's not done with Alizar here just yet.
Now he's in the better position. He's down in slipstream. He's backing off, going into the bus stop. You can see the Porsche lifting a bit. So he's definitely waiting for his chance on the front stretch. The AMG is super strong through the bus stop, of course. Cesco Monreal is now behind Julian Chicot, so car between Tony Thompson and Cesco Monreal. The question is just for how long this will be the case. And now look at Dominik Ladler and Enrico Bräuninger. They're getting closer to Alizar.
With that double draft.
But not close enough.
No, he's not wanting to force the issue this early into the race, I don't think. Obviously, 35 minutes left to go, so he's not wanting to... Neither of them want to put everything on the line right now.
Yeah, it's still super early into the race. But of course we also have further storylines. As said, Tony Thompson and Cesco Monreal have swapped places, and Julian Chicot is back up into P7 after his spin, which is quite impressive.
Dominik Ladler with that slipstream though, 1/100th of a second shy of taking the fastest lap points.
And that will be a big factor later on. Douglas Nashi in P6, so really in a good position here for this race. Bit of the Enrico position, as we coined the term, or he coined it himself, depending on how you want to see that. But he's holding strong in there. Alizar seemed like he was a bit on the defensive line going into the bus stop, interestingly enough. And I think Dominik Ladler may be a bit too far away now to really make the slipstream work. Enrico behind, as you can see in the difference panel, is getting closer, but I don't think these two will start fighting, because they both know they would lose the connection to Alizar. They have a lot of speed, but they won't get close enough in time.
Yeah, it makes sense for these two at the back, Dominik Ladler and Enrico Bräuninger, to just stay with it and make sure they stay in contention with Alizar here. They don't want to lose him and then leave the fight in for the end of the race.
Very much so. But Enrico Bräuninger is having a look down the inside, but I think that was more because of Dominik Ladler's very slow apex speed there. I think he's trying to really carry this speed now into the bus stop.
Yeah, he's maybe decided he can take the bus stop a little bit quicker than Alizar here, so he wants to leave a bit more of a gap so that he can carry that through.
Yeah, as you said earlier, it's really about the slipstream with margins this small. The only one who can really get away is Tim Schreider, because he has clean air. You can see him there very far into the distance. But for the rest, it's just about getting out of the slipstream range, which Alizar now with a 6/10 advantage. You can see it by the delta in the timing tower. It's not enough. But now comes Enrico Bräuninger around the outside of his teammate. Can he make that work? I think not. And if he gets in front of Dominik Ladler, it could still be just enough to hold off Alizar, yeah? I think the tiebreaker would actually go to Alizar. I may just give that a double check. But actually, Alizar has not won a race this season, so the tiebreaker would indeed go to Enrico Bräuninger. Julian Chicot making his way towards Douglas Nashi for P6. Cesco Monreal and Picoslu swapping places after Cesco lost the rear end out of the horseshoe. We are just 1/3 of the way through this race and already had so much happening. I think that speaks for Daytona, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit. It looks like a very simple racetrack on paper, and it's got some banked corners. And I know us in Europe were maybe a little bit wary of anything that's on an oval track, but it's a deceptively simple circuit, and it always delivers great racing with the ovals. I think it really helps keep battles close together.
Indeed. And now Julian Chico trying to make a move on Douglas Nashi for P6, but rather going for the slight bump draft because he just couldn't get the speed up. Maybe exiting a bit too close out of the bus stop. Was it enough to throw Nashi off his braking point? No, the Brazilian got it covered. But the gap between Alizar and Dominic Lala is slowly getting bigger. We are now at 9/10 between the two cars. And there's also 8/10 between him and Enrico Bräuninger.
Yeah, it seems like the entire battle is just stretching out a little bit. And obviously, the further apart they are, then the less the slipstream comes into effect. So the less kind of like catch-up power they've still got.
Chico now trying his best in the infield section. Did he get the traction down? Exiting onto the oval? Yes, he did. And a beautiful switchback move there by Julian Chico. Oh, but actually, Douglas Nashi coming back and now into the bus stop. Side-by-side slight contact. But all good. It may lose him too much momentum. Ah, but actually BMW very good through the bus stop here.
Yeah, he seems to take the beginning part a little bit slower and try and capitalize on the exit speed there. Now you can see it's paying back with just how much quicker he's going on the banked section.
I think he pulled out too early. And we have fight for the P3 here. And Enrico Bräuninger trying to go the outside of Dominic Ladler. And Julian Chico got the Brazilian covered off. Going into turn 1. Keeps it tidy to the inside. And stays in 5th. And then it's a train of 5 NGSRT drivers. Tony Thomas in P8, then P. Kosluk in P9, Cesco Manuel in P10, Piotr Zdaibel in P11, and Radoslav Piwonkiewicz, the boss himself, in P12. Slight bit of damage on Piwonkiewicz and Zdaibel's car, but other than that, looking pretty good.
A slight change of events in that Ali Zahir has just taken the fastest lap of the race, a 1:45.075.
That is not the best news for Enrico Bräuninger. Let's not forget out front, I'm sure they're still doing his laps. So he may as well put in another banger lap later with lower fuel levels. But... or other tire... different tire situation. But yeah, I mean, between these two cars, as now Picosluk is trying to make a move on Tony Thomas into the bus stop. Very fair play between the two. But there's Cesco Moreira. And these two wild teammates, I think they still want to be ahead in the championship. But it brings the Spaniard right back into the mix. And now he has his goal post just in front of him.
You always say in motorsport, the first thing you should do is beat your teammates. So I'm sure that there's going to be respect, but no love lost between these guys as they're trying to fight for positions here. They're very close together.
Oh, like Enrico Bräuninger. Enrico Bräuninger is spun round in the background, exiting the horseshoe, and then just clipping the grass. Let's see where he rejoins. That was Mark Hewitt, who's still in 5th, or now in 4th. Whereas Julian Chico will probably be around 2 seconds, the gap.
That's just a little mistake by Enrico Bräuninger. Sorry, but it's cost him a good few places there, and definitely put him out of contention for the 3rd place with Dominic Ladler.
Oh, Picosuk also off the road. And yeah, the car's definitely crabbing. Some damage, I guess, on the rear left. So he must have hit the wall.
Yeah, he's having a lot of trouble keeping the back end stable on that car now.
But yeah, big setback here for Enrico Boininger. But Julian Chicot, who also spun, as we've seen earlier, just behind him. With 25 minutes left on the clock, I don't think any of these guys are particularly safe.
No, definitely not. Obviously, they're pushing pretty hard, so it only takes a little bit of a mistake, get a couple of wheels on the grass, and around you go, and it costs you a good few seconds to get back on track again, even if you haven't got any damage. So they've still got to keep their wits about them, try and keep their concentration up, with 25 minutes left to go.
Meanwhile, you've said that Ali Zaya claimed the fastest lap, but Dominic Ladler has put in a 44.98 in the meantime. The first 44 time, I think.
That's it is the first 44 we've had on the fastest lap table, at least. Picos look just going into the pits to try and get some repairs done. He's no fuel, no tyres, just repairs.
Alizaya's run a bit wide, exiting onto the oval, and that means Dominic Ladler's not through, but we've seen that situation before.
That's very true. And he's not very far away, so Dominic Ladler's immediately under threat again.
Attacking the curbs very aggressively, but Alizaya is super close, exiting the bus stop behind Dominic Ladler, so maybe he's just too close. You can see him getting sucked in now, but will he have the overspeed? Will he be able to pass the Porsche on the straight? And you can see he's getting out of slipstream, and you just hit a solid wall of air.
Yeah, pulling out of the slipstream from these sections really does have like an immediate slowdown effect. You need quite a lot of overspeed to make it through, even with the side draft.
So that means Dominic Ladler up into second, but this is still... Oh, it could be just enough for Enrico Bräuninger if he can maybe get closer to Mark Hewitt again. But it will definitely be close. And Alizaya is now spun round. He tried to dive down the inside of Dominic Ladler and spun round again, facing the other way. Where's Mark Hewitt? He comes through the horseshoe now and will move up into 3rd place. Just tried to dive deep into the horseshoe, and Dominic Ladler shut the door because, of course, there was no overlap going into the corner.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare situation. The last couple of laps for Ali Zahir, they're going to be laps he'll want to forget in a hurry.
And this has promoted Mark Hewitt. You've seen him earlier with damage and dropping down, up into the podium positions.
But it's also put Ali Zahir only 2.4 seconds ahead of Enrico Bräuninger, so it's maybe given a bit of hope for Enrico.
I mean, as it stands right now, I think it could be that Enrico Bräuninger could just edge him out. I'm just running some calculations, so I will let you know in a moment's time. But yeah, very, very close situation between these two. Douglas Nashi, meanwhile, also still running in 7th and 5 seconds ahead of Tony Thomas. But Alizaya is also a fair bit quicker than Mark Hewitt at the moment.
Yeah, I think Enrico's hoping that Mark Hewitt can hold him up a little bit and let the gap close up, but Ali's going to be chomping at the bit, sorry, to get past.
Oh, Mark Hewitt.
Maybe a bit.
Ooh.
Ooh, that was close.
That
he
was
might have
very
hold his
close.
position there. But yeah, I wonder if Ali's maybe a little bit hesitant to make a move after the last one on Dominic Ladler.
Maybe, but you also have to be aware, of course, of the car around you. And with Mark Hewitt getting very loose on the rumble strips there, also not the dream situation to be into, and easy to be taken out. I mean, it isn't malicious, of course, by any means from Mark in this case, who's now maybe going to get past by Ali. No, Ali's actually bump drafting Mark. He's trying to get away from Enrico by bump drafting Mark down the start-finish straight. Haven't seen that in quite a while. But if you see it any place, it's Daytona.
No, maybe trying to give Mark a little hint that he doesn't have to go defensive. He doesn't have to try and hold Ali back. Like, just keep going. Just go faster. Enrico closing up fast, though. He's cut out a second in the last lap or two. Especially with that little incident with Mark Hewitt.
Mark Hewitt, of course, previously a GST driver, now in RRT. You can't quite say colors, can you? But driving for RRT, the same team Alizar is driving for. And our race leader usually is driving for. But, yeah, very interesting, of course, because his old teammate and his new teammate are equal on points as things stand right now, both on 117. And then the tiebreaker, as explained, would go to Enrico Bräuninger. So he either needs to hope for Mark Hewitt to hold Alizar off, or he needs to use the situation, get close to the two AMGs, but it seems like they're building a bit of a gap here. Gap has gone up to 1.6 seconds. And if they bump draft again now, you will see it rise up even further. But Alizar is ditching the slipstream on the banking to get as much momentum off the banking as possible.
A good amount of overspeed there, but not quite enough to make it past before the end of T1. Well, before T1 turns up.
But Mark Hewitt, yeah, is clear going into the infield section. It's getting a bit darker as well. And now the gap has come down to less than a second. Being side by side through that early stages of the race. Yeah, definitely one of the most costly things on Daytona.
Enrico taking huge amounts of time out of them there. Already caught up with Ali, and it's going to be a slipstream fight, I think.
Alizar, of course, has the help from Mark in a certain way, because he's also getting some slipstream. But the aforementioned double slipstream for Enrico Bräuninger may be just a bit stronger. Jurnichiko fading away a bit in the background, but he's still in this. As it stands right now, he would move up into 4th in the championship.
Meanwhile, with all this action, Tim Schroeder at the front just slowly creeping that gap further and further, now over 10 seconds back to Dominic Ladler.
Again, side by side here for Alizar and Mark Hewitt, and Enrico Bräuninger now inching closer.
not quite able to get alongside.
Nearly contact between the two of them, but without the contact. Again on the inside line into the horseshoe. Marquez going deep into the turn. Oh, and does that allow both to go through? Enrico Bräuninger losing the rear end. Exiting the turn. Marquez trying to have a look around the outside. Alizar is now up into P3. But what about the trailing AMG? And Marquez losing the car under braking to the horseshoe. Can he keep it out of the wall? Yes, he can. He will rejoin behind Julian Checot. But now we have an on-track battle between Enrico Bräuninger and Alizar for the podium position in this race. And P2 in the championship. Because now, of course, the gap is a bit bigger between the two cars in terms of points.
An unfortunate situation for Chestu Manera. He was right behind Tony Thomas, but he's taken a huge amount of damage and had to go into the pits for repairs. He's going to be in there for another 47 seconds, so I don't think he's going to be fighting with Tony Thomas anymore.
And those are very, very painful seconds, I can tell you that. Enrico Bräuninger trying to get the speed. Alizar trying to break the slipstream. They are still equal on points, now in 119 each. Enrico Bräuninger is going to the outside. He's going around the long way. Can he get the car stopped in time? No, the rear's going around, and that's Enrico spun round in turn 1. And Julian Checot now in front of him. But still, if he can close in on Julian Checot, he would be equal on points with Alizar as long as he doesn't get the fastest lap point. They would go to the tiebreaker, which is in favor of Enrico Bräuninger. So it all depends on whether he now can get close to Julian Checot. But heads off, he tried it all, he risked it. And it would have been a very bold move indeed.
It looked great in the first half of the corner, I've got to admit. It was a fantastic. I thought he'd pulled off a fantastic move, and then just unfortunately couldn't quite hold it after around the apex.
13 minutes left on the clock. Seems like there were some connection issues for Jason. But still out front, it is Tim Schroeder. That name is still very confusing that he picked, but I guess he picked it for a reason. And Dominic Lala in second with the fastest lap to his name. And as it stands, he will be the RCL Season 7 champion. And the last one in early access before we launch on November 13th. It's not that far out. And he's trying to go for the last 2 titles. But RCL, he may be able to wrap up, but what do you think about RR2L with the fight with Alizar here?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff in Road to Launch, the series that's going to be on tomorrow. So yeah, I think there's a lot of fighting left to be done in that, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to finding out tomorrow.
And indeed it will be you finding out, because I won't be there. So you can enjoy some good commentary for once, as Radoslav Pionkiewicz is also doing the same mistake Enrico did. And is now parked in turn 1 with Cesco Monuera, and they kind of have to find out who's going first, but props to both of them, I guess. But yeah, tomorrow without me due to the expo, of course. So you have to be happy with the very nice voice of Tim Ireland throughout the evening.
Yeah, that's immediately dropped the viewers for tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 3 digits viewers. One thing that may be good for Enrico here is that he's getting closer to Julian Chicot, while Marquis is not necessarily getting closer. And, I mean, out of the top 10 drivers, or let's say out of all the contenders in the top 5 of the championship, I think only one hasn't had a spin of some sort, and that was Dominic Ladler.
Yeah, that's probably true. There's been it's been pretty kind of on the edge of a knife stuff for most of the guys. They've been really pushing hard and just had a couple of little unfortunate spins. But that's why the gaps have really opened up now. You can see there's, I mean, obviously Dominic Ladler is in a pretty safe position. He's not going to need to worry about Ali Zahir, and he's not probably that bothered about catching up with Tim Schroeder, so he's pretty happy with where he is right now.
And with 10 minutes left on the clock, we should also maybe take a look at some of our comeback drivers. Michael G is up into 8th. He had a drive-through, I think, at the start of the race. But he climbed his way forward. Tony Thomas up into P7. And of course, would win the tie with Chesco Munuera, who had to pit. And two other drivers that were way further down the order at the start were the two NGSRT drivers of Piotr Zadajbe and Radoslav Piwonkiewicz.
Yeah, Piwonkiewicz specifically, that was a terrible pronunciation, has gained 10 places since the start of the race, which is pretty amazing. He must have been stone last.
Yeah, indeed. I'm not sure if he even qualified. Marquis, I think he had the wildest trajectory of the race. I think he's where he started roundabout. But of course he dropped down a lot earlier due to his spin or off-track moment. Then went up into 3rd and is now back into 6th. So I think there are not many people that changed places that much. But of course, it's all important for this man and Ali Zahir. Ali Zahir in 3rd, 11 seconds off Dominic Ladler. Enrico Bräuninger just 1 behind Julian Chicot, and it's the 1 position he needs. Before we close off this RCL chapter, or maybe even this GT3 chapter in early access, before we launch on November 13th, what do you think of this season? I think this season, I feel like we say this every time, but the RCL seasons are just getting better and better, more competitive, and we have more people as well. We had multiple races with multiple splits this time around, which was nice to see. I think we have a very good development going into Season 8, which will then happen after launch, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think the races have been getting better and better as they go on, and this one is no different, really. I mean, Dominic's kind of dominating the top position of the championship, but there's a lot of really close positions further back, and so it's great to see, and it's...
Oh, Julian Chicot, he was able to hang on to it for super long, but in the end, that was him into the wall, and with that, Enrico Bräuninger back into P4, and back into a position that would not quite equal. Wait, that does put him equal on points with Ali Zahir. But yeah, interrupted it there quite a bit.
No, it was the action more than anything. I didn't want to talk over that. I can't remember what I think I was talking about the grouping of people's points. Yeah, so it's been really great to see people getting closer and closer together and more fights going on in the championships, and I definitely hope that continues.
Yeah, we will most likely get a lot more people, and of course with the console launch. Which will be interesting, because we also had some very quick gamepad players, as Marquis just made a move into boss. I mean, what a move it was. But yeah, that will be interesting how this will change the nature of RCL. Of course, RNL is also going to return as Chico is now trying to take back the position on the front stretch. Can you take it? I don't think
I'm
so.
looking forward to the console guys joining in and seeing what they can bring to the championship.
Got 5 minutes left on the clock. It's actually just 3 seconds between Alizai and Enrico Bräuninger. In terms of fastest lap, not much has changed. Enrico Bräuninger actually has a faster lap now than Alizai with a 45.066 compared to Alizai's 45.075. And Tim Schroeder out front a 45.096. And of course, Dominik Lalla is just in the 44s with a 44.948. So these 4 cars, just within a 10th of a second in their fastest laps.
Yeah, Tim Schroeder did do a lap a couple of laps ago that was a 44.7, but he must have done a little bit of a track cut doing there because it hasn't registered as a fastest lap. But that's pretty impressive. Depending how much of the track he cut.
Yeah, cutting some track he also did it yesterday at the Expo. But in the end, it was able. I think he placed himself 4th on the timing table. If that's wrong, I will probably be corrected anywhere on the Discord. Another one we know from the RCL championships is David Sobrero. I think especially from the 2.4 hour here at Daytona, or the Florida Beach 500. He today won the shootout and won a Moser bundle, which is very nice.
And Tim Schroeder just setting his own personal fastest lap, but still not the fastest lap of the race with a 45.033.
Piotr Zadaba and Radoslav Pionkiewicz having some fun here for P9 and 10. Switching places. They do have a very nice looking color combination though. The pink of the Iron Dames with the white and then the blue and white of the Zebra of the BS Plus competition. I also got to meet some of the BS Plus drivers there, especially Kaiki Oliveira. A super nice fella. You can actually encounter him in multiplayer. And he is currently the only Grandmaster as well. But a super nice person. If you ever get to meet them in person, can only recommend talking to them. And in the end, I mean, that's of course kind of what we are here for, because we all share the same passion, no matter if it's the Expo or here on RENNSPORT Online. In the RCL finale, all of these drivers, they really wanted to win this one and take part. So I think that's something that has gotten a lot better over the time. Just people being able to have fun, race each other, and find some good competition in all of this. But no matter if it's Season 1 or Season 7, Dominik Ladler is still winning and still claiming championships to his name.
Tim Schroeder throwing in another personal fastest lap. He's now 500ths behind Dominik Ladler.
Does he want to take that point just for honor? It would be a grand slam if he did, but
I mean, at the minute he's leading the race by 15 seconds, so not having the fastest lap at the end of that seems like a bit of a robbery.
But he won't be able to do it because he just ran right in bus stop, which means his next lap will also be invalidated. And as the next lap is also the last one. He's coming across the line to start the final lap of the race. Don't think much will change from his point of view in his lead of this race. So does Dominik Ladler. 12 seconds now to Ali Zaya in terms of a gap. With 12 cars still rolling. Quite a high DNF rate today, but it's kind of what you expect from Daytona at times.
Yeah, it's a very high-speed circuit with a deceptively close number of walls, I'd say.
Indeed.
The grass doesn't seem to slow you down a lot, and then there's big concrete walls.
Yeah, the grass is really, really punishing around here. Because it just kind of throws your car all around. At some tracks you have very flat grass, if you can say it like that. Marquez also back into P5, I just noticed that happening. But yeah, here in Daytona it's not necessarily the case. And for Dominik Ladler, it will be his 5th RCL title. Seasons 1 to 4, some of them dominated, some of them he really had a challenge going for it. But yeah, this time it wasn't easy, by no means. Alizar, Enrico Boininger, Julian Chico and Rondon Hood gave him a good run for his money, but in the last race he was able to pretty much put the seal on it. So he will collect his 5th crown in the series, and that's not too bad.
Out of 7 seasons, that's pretty good going, I'd say.
Tim Schreider is collecting one more win to his name. Not in his main account. Not sure how much he will be bugged about that. But Dominik Ladler will come across the line to become a champion once more, and the last RCL champion in early access. Alizar will come out in 3rd. And as it stands, unless he does a magic time, which he doesn't, it's Enrico Bräuninger coming home in 4th on the track, equal in points with Alizar, but 2nd in the championship due to his win at Spa. Julian Chico finishing in 6th behind Mark Hewitt. Then it's Tony Thomas who's able to beat out his teammate in Cesco Moreira in the end, and had equal on points, finished a bit further apart now.
Yeah, just an unfortunate race for Cesco Moreira there, but I think he had some good fights, and I'm sure he enjoyed himself.
Michael G, P8 in the end. I think it can be pretty... I think he had a drive-through last time around as well.
Yeah, I think he maybe did.
I think it may be just a tactic he's trying to do. But, yeah. Vladislav Piwonkiewicz, P9. Then it's Piotr Zadaiba in P10. So these two decided to stay in the order they are. Picos Luke for NGSRT already finished in 11th. And then it's Cesco Moreira in 12th. And that is all the drivers for this race. We'll have the final standings on in just a moment's time. But yeah, what do you think of this race? I think it was exactly what you are looking for in a Daytona race, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the gaps at the front in the end were maybe a bit unrepresentative of the pace between the drivers, but I was watching Tim Schreider's laps and they were incredibly tight. So he had some fantastic consistency throughout the race. I know we normally say Dominik Ladler is Mr. Consistency, but I think this time it was Tim Schreider. The grouping on his lap times was impressive.
Yeah, it really was. maybe this. Yeah, we can actually see the final session results. There we have them. So Tim Schroeder, aka Max Danish, winning this race. Then it's Dominik Lala with the fastest lap of a 1:44.94. Ali Zaya and Enrico Bonnier coming home back to back. Then it's Maki with Julian Chico, Tony Thomas, Michael G, P1 Kiewicz and Daibe. In the standings, it looks like this. So Dominik Lala, the champion on 155 points. Gap really getting bigger in the last 2 races, but very close up, or very close earlier in the season. And yeah, Enrico Bonnier and Ali Zaya are set equal on points. The tiebreaker goes to Enrico Bonnier if you're interested in that. And Enrico has 1 win at Spa, of course. Just checking real quick. But we will verify those results, of course, after the stream and send them over in the Discord. Then it's Julian Chico and Ronan Hood, who couldn't quite hold it together. Or, yeah, Ronan Hood, really unfortunate circumstances, I'd say. He also drove a phenomenal season. Couldn't quite defend the title, but I think 2 RCL championships is also nothing to scoff at, isn't it?
Definitely not, no. Just like the points grouping in general, Dominic Ladler aside, is pretty tight. There was battles up and down the grid there for all 3rd championship positions, which was great to see.
Yeah, and I mean, with Julian Chico and Ronan Hood and P45, I think it's quite representative. With Tony Thomas in the end beating out Cesco Bonnier, Tim Schroeder on his main account in 8th. Then Timothy Fridge and Michael G. P. Kostluk in the end able to edge out Marquis with P11. Let's have a quick look at the drivers from P13 to P24, where we find Wesla P1 Kiewicz and Piotr Zadaibe in 13th and 14th. So yeah, I'm very happy with this season as a whole. I think it was very interesting to watch and to just follow the storylines throughout.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was one of our best seasons so far, and I think it bodes well coming into post-launch for when Season 8 turns around. See what happens there, hopefully with some new faces.
Indeed. And we will let you know when that happens later on. Of course, when we get closer to launch, we will communicate that as usual through the Discord. Until then, have a great time. Maybe see you at the expo tomorrow, maybe not. And if not, check out the live streams, check out the RENNSPORT Road to Launch series tomorrow. And then I'd say see you next week at latest. Or tomorrow at latest, whatever. And goodbye.
Goodbye.